All right, I'm gonna let you know right now, this is probably the most important thing that you will ever do in your DAW. Whatever DAW that is that you use, and that's hit the export button. Yes, that's right. So every DAW has an option to export audio, MIDI, and different things to different places for different reasons. Me personally, I use it for TV and film. When I'm doing briefs, they ask for a whole bunch of different chops and edits, and Reaper gives me the best options out there compared to any other DAW. The other day I was working in FL Studio, I was so frustrated and mad because the project was still in FL Studio, but they wanted that track. So I had to go bounce, wait for it to finish bouncing, do my little edits, bounce, do my little edits, bounce, and it was this repeating cycle over and over, and it took forever to get the final results that I needed. But Reaper, you don't have that issue. The only other DAW that's even close to it that I've used is Cakewalk. So let's get into it, and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. All right, so here we are in Reaper, and this theme is called Reaper Tips. What I want to do is just let you listen to the track that I have here. This is an actual brief that I got. So this is my 15-second clip for the track itself, and I'll let you hear what it sounds like. All right, so that was the track, and I want to show you exactly what I do. Let's say this was a track for an artist. This is a recording that we did, and I wanted to actually send it out to a mixing engineer. Let me show you the steps I would take to actually do that. So first off, what you want to do is go up to File, and you have an option on here that says Consolidate Export Tracks. So this way you can actually consolidate the tracks and export them. This is what your typical DAW does, and this is all they do. Where in Reaper, on the other hand, I wouldn't do it this way. I know people that do it this way, but personally, I wouldn't. I close this out. I go up to File, and I go to this option here that says Render. All right, so in this render file, you have a whole bunch of different options. Right now, it's set on like your master mix. So it'll go out of your master channel. So whatever is playing out of there is what it'll actually export, right? You have other options there. So let's say you just want to do stem tracks. So basically, whatever track you have, it'll just do the stems. It won't actually go out through the master. It has an option for that as well inside of Reaper. So if you have a master plus stems, it'll do your master track by itself, all consolidated basically, and then it'll do each stem consolidated out so that when the person gets it, they'll have a master exactly what you were doing inside the track. So if you really like the reference track, you would definitely want to do that. Send him that reference track and then do all your other stems underneath that, right? And then you have an option to do selected tracks with master. So all your mastering effects will go on this track right here if you're doing this option. So you have regions right here. There's regions render matrix. So basically you can actually have different things set up inside your matrix for rendering regions. So you can have a whole bunch of different strings of regions set up in here, or you can just have it laid out exactly how it is. And as you see, I have regions inside of the DAW right now. I have a couple of different ones set up, right? And then you can actually even do a render through the master. So basically whatever you're rendering from the regions will actually go out through your master, and it'll get all the mastering effects that you have set up on there. If you don't want the mastering effects on there, you just do the regular one that just says matrix, right? And then you can also do individual items. So let's say you have a drum sliced up on here, you can just do each individual item that you have selected inside of the track. Not many DAWs have this option, at least the ones that I've used and seen, they don't really have that option to do that. And I've used a lot of DAWs. I've used Cubase, I've used everyone's favorite FL Studio, which doesn't have that option. I've used Live, Ableton Live, Bitwig, and also doesn't have that option in there. Bitwig, a lot of people are really proud of that DAW, but I don't see the export options being as good as it is inside of Reaper. I use Traction Waveform, that's another one. where it just doesn't have as many options as it does have in here inside of Reaper. Like I said, the closest thing that I've gotten to it was Cakewalk. Even Studio One was really lacking in the export options as well. And of course, you can do selected items going through the master as well. And you have Razor edits. If you do use Razor edits inside of Reaper, you have an option to export just those Razor edits out. And then you have an option to make it go through the master channel as well, right? So you have over here, I usually like to use this option for time selection. You don't have to do that. You can do a custom range. So if you wanted a certain time frame on your timeline to actually render, you have that option here. You have the option to do the entire project. So it'll do everything inside the project, even if it's kind of like not just this little section selected, right? So it'll do the entire project. Usually we like to put a tail on the end of an entire project just so it'll catch all the reverb or ending parts of it. So that's why I usually like to use this one, this time selection, because I don't want to mess with the rendering or the tail end of the track. It'll automatically catch it because I already put my selection to that point to where all the reverb and everything is already drowned out and done. Next one is all project regions. So it'll do all the regions inside the project. So any one of these regions will also give you an option to export them, right? You have selected regions. So if you just select a couple of regions in there, you can actually select those. And it gives an option to do your markers. So if you want to do all your markers that you have inside your tracks, I'm not sure how you have yours set up, but it gives you an option to edit even your markers inside of the DAW itself. And it also gives you an option for just selected markers. So if you just want to select one marker or two markers or three markers, I only have two in this project just to kind of show you guys how you can actually use it, right? So I'm going to stick with the time selection for now because that's, like I said, my favorite one to actually do. I'm going to double click on this top one here, right? And it'll select this region that I have here. And if you ever wonder how I got like another arranger lane inside of Reaper, basically you just pull down this right here, this top part. So if you have your track where your track lane is right here, you can pull this down and it'll give you an option if you go down far enough to actually do and see or make other lanes inside of Reaper. I think that is really, really cool. Shout out to Reaper Tips for that tip as well. But let's continue on. So this section here is where your directory will actually go. So if you have a place that you like to put stuff, you can actually go to the browser here and you can find a file and create a file, or you can browse your directory if you wanted to. What's really cool about this is I have an option in here to actually make a folder. So let's say I know I'm having this whole project go into a specific folder so that when I'm actually bringing it in for the brief, they'll be able to have all the stuff in there that they can actually view and see, right? So if I hit on / or \, right? And I say, let's name it Happy Dance, which I have it named right now. So it's going to create a folder on my desktop called Happy Dance, right? And right down here is telling me where it's going to render to. So it's going to go to my desktop. The folder is called Happy Dance, and I have the project name, which is TV Film Happy Dance, which I'm going to change. Let's just change this. Let's say we just want it to be. So now it's just Happy Dance. So I have my Happy Dance inside here. So let's say I want to do like a tempo and different things in here, right? So if I hit on wildcards, I have project information, project order, and all these other options for like date and time on here. You can actually put even your computer information on there as you wanted to. So all these are options that you can add onto your tracks. So let's say I wanted to do the tempo. So I'm gonna go down here to where it says tempo. I'm gonna put a dash in here because I usually like to put dashes. I do a lot of weird things. Don't worry about it, guys. All right, so I'll go tempo and let's say beats per minute, right? And I want to do this as the full output, like the full track itself, with all the sounds in it, all the effects, all the drums, everything in it together, right? the full track. So I'm gonna name it full. So basically it's telling me right here, it's gonna name the track Happy Dance, 110 beats per minute, and it's gonna be the full, right? And right now it's set for MP3 because down here it says MP3, but we're gonna get to that in just 1 second. All right, so here we are in the options section. So you have your sample rate here that you can change. Usually you wanna stick around 44 or you wanna do 48. Those are usually like the standards that I get asked for when I'm actually sending stuff in for briefs. So I'm just gonna use that for this demonstration right now, right? So you have your channels where you can add different channels on here. You can do mono and stereo. You have full speed offline. So basically this will go as fast as your computer can process it for the output of the track, right? You have other options for one-time offline. This is for if you have effects that have an issue actually processing at the full speed or the fast speed. You want to probably slow it down to the 1 times offline so that the plugin can actually catch up to whatever the track is actually doing. The other option is to do online render, which means that it'll play from beginning to end to actually render out the track. You can hear the whole thing playing through when it's on online, right? So this is basically bringing it back to like that Pro Tools days where you had to wait forever for Pro Tools to go through the whole track. Oh man, I used to hate those days. But yeah, so that's what that is. Offline idle basically means that you can put this in an idle state for Reaper. So it'll kind of process everything in like the background. So you can do other things like, you know, watch TV or, you know, YouTube or do other things while it's still processing. So that's what the idle ones kind of do. And of course, you have your just regular offline and you have your one-time offline, right? So right here is a very interesting section. This second pass render, I use this when I'm doing any kind of briefs. The reason that is because it'll go through the whole track and kind of give you like, it gives like a guesstimate of what it's gonna do. And then it's gonna process all the effects and everything on the second turn around. So basically it gives the DAW a chance to warm up all your VST. So if you just opening up a project and you hit play, you know, sometimes those tracks don't load up. This will give it an option to load up all those effects, all those plugins, all those VSTs, and then it'll actually start to render out the track on the second pass. That's the gist that I get from it. That's why I use it when I'm actually doing briefs. I'll leave it on for this one, just so that you guys can kind of see it when in action. All right, and then here is your resample mode. Mine's is default to this one. This is what my computer suggests, this 192. Yours may be on this medium quality one, but I'm gonna put it on the high quality one. This one right here is our brands. And this list goes from slowest, or should I say least quality to the highest quality, right? So I'm gonna leave that on there. So you also have an option right here to normalize, limit, or fade your track. So if you click on that, it'll bring up your option to normalize the track. So you can set your LUFs, or if you wanted to change it, you could do just the peak level or the true peak, and it'll set the normalization to that level for the whole entire track. I wouldn't necessarily suggest to do it, but you know, you have the option to do it if you want to. You can also put like this brick wall limiter on there and you can change the peak of where you want it to actually peak at. And you can also do fade ins and fade outs right here inside of the export. Man, if that's not enough for you guys to understand the power that you have just from exporting and replay, there's no other DAW that I've used that does all of this. And I'm still not even all the way through the whole thing yet. All right, so we're gonna go to this section down here. Usually to get there, you have to actually have something else in here, like you have the selected tracks, right? So this gives you an option to kind of put things in mono if they're in mono. You have the multi-tracks for certain files. You have an option to only render if it's going to a parent. The dithering things, you don't necessarily need it, but you know, most people say you do need it. I don't really hear the difference in the dither. If it is something technical that I'm missing, it is what it is. Personally, my personal opinion, I don't see the need for it, but you know, people do, and that's perfectly fine. right? So I'm gonna put it back on my master mix, right? And we're gonna go along. So this area here is for metadata. So if you click on this button here that says metadata, you'll see this light up, this option here to do metadata. Click on that and it'll bring up this section here so you can see different metadata that you can add. The one I usually like to do is go to ID3, and this helps out for MP3, WAV, and AIF files, right? And I have my contact, the tempo, my name, and a logo embedded inside of the track itself. So if I go to my presets where I have it saved, I can hit my standard data that I usually use. So if I clear this out, right? So I clear that out and I go back to my presets and I click on my standard media data. This is what I usually put on my tracks. I hit apply and hit OK. And now it'll always go onto whatever track I make inside here will be embedded with that metadata, which is a really cool feature that a lot of other DAWs do not have. I'm just trying to tell you guys, like it's great. All right. So down here, you have an option to hit a primary output format, and you have an option for a secondary output format. So I'm gonna change this one. This is MP3. I already sent it into the brief, so I'm just kind of going through the motions right now. So I'm gonna have it on WAV, 16-bit. You can also do 24-bit or 32-bit, whatever they're requesting. I'm gonna just leave it on 16-bit just for now. And you have an option to change your other settings. You can embed tempo here as well, so you can embed the tempo inside the WAV file this way as well. But let's say you wanted the WAV and an MP3 to send out or to test or just to have for different things. You can go right here to where it says secondary output format, click on this, and let's go to MP3. And now I have my MP3 set up in here. I have my bitrate set to 320. This is like the best one you can actually do. There are people that do 192. I like to do 320 just because I like it to be as close to a WAV file as possible, even though it's a little bigger. But that's just what I do, man. That's what I do, right? All right. So so now we have these two in here, and as you see right down here, it says render 2 files. So it gives me that option to render 2 files. So basically I have my master mix set up. This time selection, whatever this time right here is selected, right? It's going to tell me the name, and it's going to create a folder where it's going to go. This is the name of the file itself. So it's going to be Happy Dance with the tempo, beats per minute, and it's going to say full at the end of it, which is right here at this section here. It's going to tell me here there's 2 files that's being created. It's going to be at the sample rate of 48,000 hertz, right? It's going to be in stereo. It's going to do a second pass, so it's going to pass through 2 times before it actually goes through. It's also going to embed the metadata in there, and it's going to do the MP3, and it's also going to do the WAV, right? And down here, you have this option to silently increment the file. So basically, let's say if I rendered this whole thing twice, it'll have a 1 after it and then a 2 after it if I did another one. So basically it'll put numbers at the end of your files, right? So it doesn't overwrite any of the other ones that you do. And this one gives you an option to like not render the files that are silent. So if you're doing stems, anything that's actually silent, like these tracks here that like are silent, they won't actually go through the process. All right, so this save copy to project, this will give you an option to actually play this file so you can hear exactly what it is instead of actually opening up the whole entire project if you're in like the RIA launcher or something like that. So this is a really cool feature as well. Just so like I said, you can have it inside of the whole entire file. And when you play it, you can actually hear what the file is instead of going and loading up the whole entire project to hear what file this is. So that's a really cool feature as well. And this gives you an option to save the stats, and it'll make like a HTML file for the stats. Basically, it'll bring you online and show you all the stats of the song that you're just rendering, which is really cool. So you have a dry run. It's not going to give any kind of output. It's not going to actually do it. It's just going to show you like your peaks and valleys of your track. which is really cool if you're not sure if your stuff is peaking. That way you can actually adjust what you need to adjust inside the track. So if I just hit render, it'll start rendering the tracks. But let's say I needed a whole bunch of other stuff done, which you usually do need to do when you're doing like a TV film, a brief or cue, or if you're doing like video game edit, stuff like that. All right, so what I'm gonna do is click on where it says queued renders. Click on that, and it gives you an option to add to render queue. You could add to render queue and close the window, so it'll close this window once I hit this one. You can get a delay queued render to allow samples to load. All right, and this delayed render queue here will give you an option to delay any of the loading of your renders. So let's say you had 2 whole songs on 2 different tabs, and yes, you can do that inside of Reaper and have like 2 whole songs or however many songs your tabs can hold. You can have them all in one big render queue and have them doing different things, right? And this will delay it so that all your plugins will definitely load up before it starts to rendering the track. That's why I like to do the second pass. This kind of eliminates me having to do this delayed one, but you have the option in here to do it anyway, right? All right, so I'm gonna hit on add to render queue, right? And once I click on that, it has been sent to the render queue. So if I click on here again and I go to open render queue, as you can see, this is the happy dance one. This is the one that we're just done. And it's telling me where it's gonna go, right? To the target. So you have an option in here to remove this selected. So if I wanted to remove this, I can remove the selected. And now the render queue is empty. I can close here. I can go back and add to a render queue. So this really makes it easy for you to kind of do all that. And like I said, this is going to be 2 files, which is going to be the WAV and the MP3, right? Okay, so let's add some more to the render queue, right? I'm going to hit on, I'm going to close this out, right? So now let's say you wanted to do, I'm going to take away the mixer and all this other stuff. You could do that by hitting Alt and D on the keyboard, and that'll bring up this to look like this right now. So let's say I wanted to do, I don't want any of the sounds. So I'm mute here. And as you see, all of the sounds are actually muted, and it still has this section here. So I'm gonna go back up to File. I'm gonna go to Render. And now that we're in this render, and let's say this is like stems, I can do another folder inside that folder, right? So I'm gonna go and put a slash, and I'm gonna do stems, right? And let's say this is gonna be, it's not gonna be full anymore, right? This is gonna be, so we have the bass and drum here now, right? So basically what it's gonna do is gonna put it in this happy folder. It's gonna tell me that, and the bass and drum WAV file. Everything is still gonna be the same. And what I'm gonna do is add it to the render queue, and I'm gonna close this out, right? So boom, so I have this section selected, and I have it just on my drum and bass. So let's say we wanted to take out the drums. So we're gonna take out the drums, and we're also gonna take out my crash and riser, right? So let's go back in here, go back to render. And we're gonna say no drums, right? So I have the option for no drums. I'm gonna add that one to the queue and close this out. So let's add these back on here. And anything I change in here when I click on to add to render is gonna keep for that render file. Basically, Reaper keeps a memory of all the things that you're actually doing in there, which is really, really cool. And like I said, I haven't seen another DAW that can do this. All right, so now let's say we want to do like one of these regions, right? Let's say I want to do my sting. So I could do it from just a section, or I can just do the actual sting from a region, right? So if I go to render, and let's change this from stems, and let's say we're gonna make this into regions, right? So now what I can do is go up to this regions render via master, and I can do selected region. And I can go to my region manager and select the region, which would be the sting. So basically what we want to be is at this render track area, and click on that, and we want to go to master mix. So boom, so it tells me there's one region now, and it's telling me that this one should be ready to go to do for just this region alone. So I'm gonna come back to it though and do the other regions as well. So we have the regions just for the sting. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take this off, there's no drums, right? And I'm gonna go to my wildcard, and I'm gonna go to region. And when I click on region, it's gonna tell me it's gonna be sting wave. So now I have my sting set up on here. Let's say we wanted, we didn't want the MP3 anymore. So I'm gonna put no outputs for this one, right? So there's gonna be no MP3 for this one. All the other ones have an MP3 attached. This one is not. So I'm gonna do a different format. I'm gonna do AIF 16-bit, that should be fine. And let's add this one to the render queue. So now what I can do, another selected region. So I'm gonna go to this region manager. All right, so take off that master there. Let's say we wanted to do all the other ones. So click on here, hold down shift and click on this one. So all of these will be set up. So if you double click in here, it'll bring up this option. Then you can just go to master mix. And as you see, all of them will be sent to that mix, right? Let's say you wanted to do stems, right? Stems for all of these little sections in the regions, you can do that as well. So if you double click on here and you go to mix master plus all tracks, right? So now you'll have all the tracks and the masters for all of them, right? So anything that's in here, you'll be able to use. So the drums, all the other tracks, all of them will have all the stuff in here. But most of the time you don't want to do that, right? So you can just do, I'm just going to do a master and leave it at that. I'm going to close this out. So now as you see, it has 6 files, and they'll do the regions however they come inside of the regions folder, right? So I'm going to go here and I am going to add to render queue. So now let's say we want to do the markers. So I'm going to change this right here. And we're going to do markers, right? I'm going to go to here where it says all project markers. So now I only have 2 markers in here, so it'll set it up as my 2 markers here. And I can take off this region, right? And I can actually go to the wildcards and put markers. Right, so it'll add the name of the markers in there as well. So I have a B light and a part B. So those are my 2 markers that I have inside here. Let's change this to wave, and let's make these 24-bit, right? So we have a markers folder with the 2 markers. It's going to name them, and what I want to do is add this to the queue. So I think that's enough to kind of go through and show you guys exactly what it's going to do to process all of this. All right, so now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go to the queued renders and go to open rendered queue, right? So these are all the ones that I have in here. So here's my markers, my regions, my one sting, and I have the other folders where I'll have the wave, and I have MP3s with these wave ones up here as well. And you have an option to do just selected render. So whatever one you select, you can do, or you can render all. I'm gonna do a render all, and I'm gonna show you the results at the end. So this is the time where you can kind of get like your cup of coffee or go get some tea, go grab some food. But I have just done this whole project one go, one sitting. I can go and do other things now if I need to. Whereas in the other DAWs, I have to sit there and wait and wait and wait. But let's render. And like I said, I have it on doing a double pass. So it will pass through 2 times before it actually does the final render. Well, it'll pass through 1 time and then it'll do another pass to do the final render of whatever track I have set up or selected in here. All right, and it's moving on to the next part, which would be the bass and drum. All right, and now it's doing no drums. All right, and it's going to do the sting right now for the regions, and now it's going to do the other regions. All right, and the last part it's going to do is the markers. And seeing that I don't have a marker at the end, that's why I did the big pause and it's doing the ending part. It's hilarious. All right, and now all of them are done. As you see, the render queue is cleared out. What I want to do is bring up the folder so you guys can see it. All right, so here is my folder. I'm going to go to desktop. And as you see, I have an option on here that says Happy Dance now. So I could double click that one. And I have my folder for my markers, folder for my regions, folder for my stems, and my two fulls, my MP3 and my wave right here inside that. Here's my stems and their names. So bass and drum MP3, bass and drum wave, no drums MP3, wave. So all of them is right here. So if I go to my regions now, I stretch this out. So I have my chorus, my intro, my part A, light, part A, part B. So I have all of them in here. And these are AIF files, as you can see. So I changed the file names for those. And I have my markers, which would be part B, light, and part B. So both of those are in here as well. So this is the power of the rendering features inside of Reaper. This is the best export that I have ever used in any DAW. So I hope you guys really got something out of this video. If you have like any questions or concerns, please leave them below in the comment section. And please make sure you guys are liking and subscribing to the channel, because it does help out the channel when you like and subscribe. But once again, I want to thank you guys for stopping by and watching Learning Reaper. Till next time. Peace. Hey you. Yes, you. YouTube wants you to watch this video next, man. Go ahead and click it. I'll wait. Nah, I'm just playing. I'm not going to keep waiting here. All right. I will see you in the next video though. Peace.